Hello and welcome to Lead with Tech. I hate paying our IT vendors. Surprisingly, this is a very universal phrase that I know many CFOs and CEOs are saying every month. But what most people don't realize about this phrase and about this mindset is that whenever you say something like that, I hate paying our IT vendors, it's a major red flag. It means that something is off, or at least internally you realize that you're not getting the value from your vendors and it should not cost that much. Now, there are different reasons for this, and we're going to talk about those reasons today. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly what the IT budget for your company should look like, why, and what to do now when you're already in the hole. So this story is pretty universal, like I said, and it's about a non-technical, it means that the main product is not technology, a non-technical traditional enterprise doing somewhere around $50 and $500 million. Maybe at a certain point it was doing 500 million and now it's doing 150. Maybe it's doing 300 million. It's still in that range. So let's say the company was growing and it was growing from $100 million, $100 million, $300 million, and finally $500 million. And it seems like that will continue. But at a certain point, something happens. Maybe a pandemic, maybe a product didn't work out the way the company thought. Something happens. They're selling products to the end consumers. So they rely on the e-commerce solution that they have. They also have logistics and warehousing and shipping and all that stuff. But all those things are automated these days too. So obviously they also have an IT department. They have some internal employees. They have some vendors. And when the company was growing, no one was really paying attention to the IT budget. And as long as the company was growing, no one really had the time or incentive to look into this or inspect if there's an issue of overspending or there's something else going on, how to optimize things, because the company is growing. What's the point? But then when the company suddenly stopped growing and its revenue became 400, 300, 200 million, and all of a sudden the company found itself on the bottom of the hole at $150 million a year, when just a couple of years ago it was at 500 million. At the same time, the IT budget that was 2.5, 3.5, whatever it was there, at $500 million, it actually increased while the revenue decreased. So this situation, believe it or not, is very common. And it typically points out to a couple of reasons, a couple of things that absolutely need to be investigated. Thing number one is that the golden rule in the industry is that if you are maintaining what you have technologically, right? You have your website, maybe you have a mobile app, you have your back office, you have your logistics. But again, for a non-technical e-commerce dependent company these days, we're not talking about fully custom solutions. We're talking about systems that IT department typically maintains and maybe slightly modernizes or tweaks. If that's the case, the IT budget should not exceed 1.2% of the annual revenue. But if the company was doing $500 million and it was growing, the IT budget should have been more than the IT budget at $150 million, because at that point the company was growing, so it was needing more things from IT. For a company that's growing and the IT is helping it grow with its advanced super high-tech solutions, then it could be at $10 million easily. But if it's not growing at 500 million or the growth is slowing down, it should roll back to 1%, like $5 million, right? But if the company is actually shrinking, if the revenue is shrinking, it means that the company is in crisis. And if the company is in crisis, there's no way that IT budget would actually increase unless the company decided to make some risky move and invest a couple $1 million into creating some custom innovative solution, which typically is not the case for a lot of those companies. So when you find yourself on the bottom of the hole, when you were here and now you're here, but your IT budget is still there and it's even higher than it was, then obviously there's something off. What could that be? There are at least 4 different reasons. One, and it's a usual suspect, is that you're overpaying for those SaaS solutions that you have. Oracle and Shopify, those guys like to raise their prices. They like to twist arms and they like to pressure you into paying them more money. If that's the case, it's really easy to track and it's really easy to fix by renegotiating those terms. The second very common reason is paying for custom software development when solutions to those problems could be bought as off-the-shelf solutions, meaning that you would hire a lot of people or you would hire a vendor to build something from scratch and that thing would take, I don't know, a year to make, right? But you had something already in the market that could serve you and could solve your problem. And it would probably cost a lot less than what you would pay for custom software development. That would be another very common reason. And this mistake happens because those decisions are typically made by CTOs and CIOs who are very busy and triple booked in meetings, and they just don't have the time to explore what's out there in the market. If they don't do that, obviously, they would just make this decision. Yeah, let's make this, without even looking that something like that already exists and you could just take it and implement it. It's not a foul play, it's just an oversight, but it's a very pricey oversight. However, reason number 3 is actual foul play. Like we've seen this a couple of times when CFOs and CEOs cannot explain why they're paying more and more money to certain vendors who do not necessarily produce any valuable results or anything that the company could actually use or showcase or be excited about. But it's all explained in the way that this work is very important. It needs to be done. You just don't understand it. It's too technical. Some kind of FOMO is always present there. In those situations, the senior manager, CTO, CIO, VP of engineering, IT director, whoever it is getting paid by the vendors to be in that relationship. And while that's a kickback situation, obviously it's not fair to the company. It happens. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work in the company's favor. But if that's the case, the company would just not know for years that something like that was happening. And obviously behavior like that would not let the company grow at the pace that it was expected to grow. And the fourth, again, very common reason is underutilized SaaS tools and solutions. How many times did I see the situation when a new CIO or a CTO comes in and they basically get the list of all SaaS solutions that the company has and is paying for monthly, because it's typically a subscription, or annually. And they gather everyone in the room and they start asking questions like, what is this thing? What does it do? Who's using this? What is it for? Who's using this? And at the end of the meeting, it turns out that like 60% off all those subscriptions, enterprise subscriptions that are very pricey typically, are not utilized by the company at all. I remember this case with Cisco Phone in one of the companies that we worked with. They were paying $200,000 a year for that Cisco phone, which was only used by one person once a month to talk to some offshore team. That's clearly a waste. So those 4 reasons would be the main reasons for your bloated IT budget. So what do you do about it? Because now that you know that if you are in crisis, your IT budget should not be more than 1.2% of your annual revenue. What do you do if your IT budget is actually 2% or 2.5% or it's 1.7, still above that? You need a second opinion, just like with any problem that you have in personal life and one source is giving you this information, but you feel like something's off or you want to recheck that. What do? You typically get a second opinion. So that would be the case here. You would need an architectural review. Like for example, at Techery, we never start any projects, any new engagements with customers until we verify everything ourselves. We never trust whatever we see on the surface. We have to check everything ourselves. And we have this very polished process now that is called the architectural review, which takes about 3 to 5 weeks. But in simple terms, what it does is that imagine you have a flashlight, very powerful flashlight, and you have a house that you just bought, but you need to remodel the house. And there's a bunch of stuff in the attic over there or in the basement. And then you go down the stairs to the basement and you use that powerful flashlight to sort things out. Okay, these boxes are covered in web and covered in dust. Like those things are trash. That thing is valuable. We'll keep that. We'll keep that. We'll get rid of that. So basically, by the end of the architecture review, what the company gets is a clear understanding of where it stands technologically, whether what it has and is paying for reflects the values of the business, and if the company can actually scale with what it has. Is it overpaying for something? Is everything working efficiently and effectively? And we, as a company that is helping the company grow, we now have a full blueprint of where you stand so that we know if you want to innovate, it's probably too early because you still need to bring yourself up to the foundational level of being modern. If you are modern and you have all the modern processes and tools, then, well, you want to innovate, fine. Your blueprint basically tells us that you're ready. And I can't really think of any other way of doing this because it is very logical and it's very straightforward. So just to summarize it again for you, for a typical non-technical traditional company that is selling goods or services through e-commerce platform that has logistics and shipments and is B2C, and it's making $150 million to $500 million, an optimized IT budget should typically fall within the range of 1 to 1.2%. If you are heavily innovating, if you're investing consciously into new tools and solutions, if your IT is not just IT, but it's a technology unit that is creating something new and vibrant in the digital realm, then your IT budget would increase to 2 to 2.5%, could be even more if you're consciously innovating and investing. But again, if you're sitting in the hole and you are here and now you're here and your IT budget is here, then something's off and you need to investigate what the reason is. And in order for you to do that, use the architecture review, use a second opinion, use a third party to investigate the situation and tell you. You need an unbiased opinion, obviously. So I hope this helps. And as we know, you fall into the hole, but you can't unfall. You have to climb up. So the sooner you start climbing up, the better. And the only method of climbing out from a deep hole these days is obviously leading with tech. Thanks for watching.